Welcome to the Kansas City Business Cast. This is your host, Michael Reisinger. Hey guys, I really appreciate all the engagement on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. If you like what you've been hearing lately, would you kindly leave me a review or a rating on any of those platforms? I'd really appreciate it. Today, I have a very special guest on the show. His name is Vince Haworth. He is the Director of Capital with America's Small Business Development Center, Kansas, aka SBDC for a lot of folks. He is actually stationed out of the Johnson County Community College office, but oversees everything SBDC and Capital for the state of Kansas. Vince, I am so glad to have you here today, man. It has been a pleasure getting to know you beforehand. Welcome to KCBC, sir.
Oh, thanks. I'm really excited to be here. The moment we talked, it sounded like a great opportunity. And, outside of just the business part of it, we've had some laughs already. So it's been, I'm just excited to be here, talk about our organization and anything I can do to help our business out there in the state of Kansas and actually Missouri and all about, because everything we're going to talk about today kind of resonates nationwide, really. So
absolutely. And I think it is important, too, to set the stage, because you and I talked about, who's your audience with SBDC? And I think there's kind of like two components. It's like, number one, like, anyone that's out there right now that has been dreaming, thinking about taking their talents to the marketplace and becoming their own business owner, with all the layoffs and all of the shifts, the cataclysmic shifts that have happened in the job market and in the economy in the last 3 years. And then there's this other part where there's people who have started their own thing and they're a small business owner or a solopreneur, and they've just been hitting brick walls. And the thing that I know, even about my own journey, is I had an employee mindset, all the way up until March of this year. And you and I have talked about that. I don't want to bore my listeners with that story again.
You're good.
But there are so many things that you don't learn in school or in college. Parents raising us, like, there's a big opportunity to educate and equip people out there to let them know what's possible. As I've started, interacting with more entrepreneurs, business owners, I've noticed how helpful these folks are, how resilient they are, how diverse the business owner demographic is. And so when I found out about SBDC, I actually learned that there was development centers, throughout the country, and that's so we're making a designation here. You represent the state of Kansas,
right?
And there's things that you guys are doing that no other SBDC is doing.
Yes.
So that's our audience today. That's who we're speaking to. And if you don't fall into either of those two categories, listen anyway, because my man has some amazing knowledge he's going to give you today.
Yeah, it's a great organization. I never really thought I was going to be working with them to begin with. So I kind of was thinking about how my journey got me to the SBDC a little bit. And it just, I thought about my banking career a little bit. I was asked to be a keynote speaker at in Western Kansas for a organization there. And I was kind of thinking about how life takes you into different directions, and especially business owners. Sometimes you have a dream of starting a business, and what you thought it was going to be turns out to be nothing like what you thought it was going to be, and you have to pivot and move into different directions. And with COVID just a few years ago, so many people had to pivot, and it's amazing how life just takes you in different directions. But yeah, the Small Business Center, it's a nationwide network. It's a terrific taxpayer-paid business resource center and advisors, and they're so talented. I couldn't believe this resource was out there for clients, and I never would have known about them because they're nonprofit, so they don't advertise. So unfortunately, the only way people get to know them is through these kind of avenues, referrals from business owners. And I'll never forget, the only way I knew about them is I had these two ladies walk in, and they wanted to open up a bookstore. And this
is when you were with the bank, and we'll get into your origin story. We'll
with
go there.
The bank.
But two ladies come in, they wanted to open a bookstore,
and I'm looking at them like, you're crazy. Like, have you heard of Amazon? Have you heard of these? I'm like, you want to open up a bookstore? And I was just amazed. I was like, okay, let's go through the drill here. Let's hear your story. And I go, well, you do realize Border just closed down 2 weeks ago. And they're like, yeah, we bought all their fixtures. I'm like, pennies on the dollar. I was like, oh, okay. We've got some smart ladies here. And it started going through their business plan, and it was phenomenal. And they had a niche that they were doing. They weren't doing just the typical Borders where you come in and buy the book and, you sit and have coffee. And they were doing a mystery type bookstore. They were doing books that you couldn't get online too. So they had a niche and got into it. And I was like, so not that I don't think you can do this, but it looks like you've received some assistance here. And we work with the Small Business Development Center, and they help get my business plan together and our projections. And I think I need to find out a little bit more about them. And so I actually took a class incognito, just
under the radar. Was that with Johnson County?
Yeah, Johnson County Community College, and. It was they were teaching finance, and I sat in there, me and another banker. We had signed up just individually, and we were sitting in the class asking questions. And it was funny, the director, she was like, you guys seem like you know a little bit more than the typical.
At your level, I'm sure it's hard to hide too.
I think the level of questioning we had. And so we got in there, and I was just so impressed at the resources they offer. Our government doesn't always do a lot of things good, but I will say that, they provide this assistance for small business owners. And as a banker, I loved it. I mean, I was able to send my clients who need that extra help, need a little bit push, need directions, needed the information and demographics. And, that's what they do, is they help you through all that. And, a lot of times businesses want to open, and they don't know if it's actually an attainable goal. Like you were saying, is this really reality? Can we do this? And they help you kind of flush all that out. And nationwide network, and they're in all states, and I think they're Puerto Rico and Guam and Virgin Islands, and I wouldn't mind working at the Virgin Island one, but but they're typically located in higher education centers. So like here in Kansas, we have them at KU, K-State, Johnson County Community College, Pitt State, Fort Hays State, Wichita State, Emporia. And they typically are couple advisors. Here at Johnson County Community College, we have 3 advisors. We have a regional director and a coordinator.
That's Jessica, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I met her first, right? I saw her article, and I was like, I would love to have you guys.
Yeah, she's fantastic. So she kind of guides everything. And, all these advisors are master level. They have specialties in all these different things that.
Yeah, let's talk about that, right? Because I want to talk about, and quick question for you. Do you have to be a student to interact with the SBDC?
Absolutely not.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, good question.
So with the 3 advisors, and then I know you've got plenty of, tools in your arsenal from your experience, but what types of folks do you have on the team there? Talk about that experience. You were just starting to go there. Yeah,
that's a great question. So we have one advisor who's certified in importing and exporting. So if your business, you want to get into that part of, we have somebody who's certified within that division. They know how to get you ready, how to set that up, the contacts that you would need to do. We have a government division where if you want to get government contracts, we have a person that sits right across from me that does that. Of course, I do capital. We'll talk a lot about that.
Sure.
And then we have a lady she's certified in exit planning. A lot of people don't think about, so you take your business and you grow it, and a lot of times they don't think about the exit part of it and
selling it. Yeah, basically for people who aren't familiar with that.
They there's a process to that, and a lot of people leave money on the table with that. That's a huge mistake. All of a sudden they decide they want to sell one day when they should have really been preparing years out for it, because they'll leave money on the table. And then we have marketing specialists. We have people that, you name it, operational efficiencies, you name it, pretty much anything that the business would need. We have somebody within our network that can help you with it. And again, it's all taxpayer paid. It is state specific. So if you're a Kansas business, you have to be with the Kansas SBDC. If you're a Missouri business, you have to be with Missouri, Iowa. Same thing going forward. It's because how we're funded. We're funded by the state that we're in.
Got it.
The SBA.
Which is the Federal Small Business Association.
Yes.
Right?
I'm sorry. It's sometimes lingo.
That's okay. I've learned that over time
Yes.
with interviewing people.
They're one of our funding sources, and then the Department of Commerce for Kansas, and then the college system. And so they all kind of contribute to this pool for us to operate. And a lot of people they kind of wonder, how can you be free? What are they getting out of it? Like, right. It doesn't make a lot of sense. How can you be free? And one, free doesn't always equal value. And so I think they kind of look at it as, if we're creating jobs, we're creating tax dollars, we're expanding the state. And they kind of look at that return on investment for that, and that's kind of how they justify us, because they grade us on excuse me, new business starts, counseling hours, and capital infusion. I think there's one other one, and I can't remember what it is today, but that's kind of how we get graded. So that we have to report that information back to our stakeholders, and that's how it works. And it's been around for 50 plus years, and so it's not something new, but unfortunately, we don't get to advertise, and our advisors and directors, they're so busy helping clients, they don't always get a chance to get out there and talk about it. And so my position, I'm a little bit more freer, and I get out here and kind of promote the SBDC and Capital Center.
I really appreciate that. And just, again, this is why I feel so honored to have you here in this seat, because you were the first Capital Pro on this team. Can you kind of tell us about that and why that's unique, and why we hope it spreads across the nation?
It was funny. I was at a conference here about a month ago, and it's called NAGLE, and it's basically for banks who do SBA lending. And we were the only SBDC in attendance there. And they all kind of were like...
This is a national conference.
This is a national conference of the biggest lenders.
Like down in Louisiana or something
yes,
like that?
In New Orleans. Can't complain about that.
Right.
It was a lot of fun, but they were all puzzled as why we were there.
What are you guys doing here?
And so I had to explain to them. And of course, one of our major things that we do is we work with banks. And so there was one, we wanted to keep up on all the policy changes that SBA has done. And then two, to expand our resource network. And it was funny because they were like, Kansas? What are you – wait. What are you guys doing? And so we had to kind of go through the pitch a lot and kind of too. But it was an interesting story how we kind of got started. Actually COVID really was the impetus for starting this division. And quite honestly, if COVID wouldn't happen, I don't know if I'd be here.
What happened? Yeah.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this.
That's right.
I worked for a bank, and a lot of people have images of working for a bank, and it's all glory, and they get to do lunches and country clubs and golf, and I thought that too. And there is some reality to it, but it's also a very hard job, and I don't think a lot of people realize the stress that comes with it. But I had worked for a bank and we were doing really well. We were an SBA preferred lender, doing extremely well. And a bank bought us that didn't like what we do. And it's very expensive to do SBA lending. And quite honestly, the bank I was working for at the time may have not been doing everything right. And so the acquiring bank, and that was before I got there, but some of the problems were starting to arise, and they didn't really care for that type of lending because they considered it a little bit risky. And so I kind of said, all right, well, I see the writing on the wall. Maybe I need to join another bank. And one of my friends had already went to this particular bank. We won't name the bank.
Sure.
But they're out on that Missouri side, so we'll say. And maybe in St. Louis. But there's a lot of St. Louis banks. But
That's right.
it was we joined them. I had been with them for 3 weeks and had taken a pre-scheduled vacation, and we were just down in Turks and Caicos, just enjoying everything. And we saw that news story about the cruise ship getting detained.
Right.
I think a lot of people remember that story.
Like yesterday.
Gosh. And we were like, well, this doesn't sound good. Got back, and I think it was, what was it? 4 or 5 days later, they announced lockdown, I think.
Yep. Shelter in place. Yep.
Yeah. And so I think 2 days later, I got a call from the bank, and we're going to let you go. And I'm like, wait, what? I just started 3 weeks ago. What is happening here? And we're cutting expenses. We don't see us lending anymore we think it's going to be long term, and we have to let all our lenders go. And we're going to keep a few of them on to kind of manage the clients we have, but it was nice knowing you. Here's a little bit of money, not much, I will tell you, because I'd only been there for 3 weeks.
Right.
And so it was kind of a shock. It was kind of a punch to the stomach. I'd never really been in that position before, and it was really tough. And then, of course, the SBA and it came out with PPP and EIDL, and
that's right.
Yeah, all of a sudden I found myself doing some pro bono work with the SBDC. I'd been a volunteer with them for like 8 years as a subject matter expert.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
volunteered one time. They do this one class called Business Basics in a Day, and they have it's like a business boot camp. It is fantastic. I love it. They'll bring in subject matter experts from every walk of life. You got accountants, attorneys, bankers. They go through, and it's like, because everybody has these dreams of being their own business owner, but they don't realize everything that's really into it.
Right.
And so they'll go through this one-day class, and it's like, do you really want to be a business owner or not now?
Right.
And so it's kind of the way they kind of talk. But I used to teach the banking part of it. So I was pretty familiar with them. And quite honestly, they'd send me their good customers for loan opportunities. So they were a good place of business as well. And so they had received CARES Act money. And they called me up and said, hey, getting capital for clients is hard anyway. Our advisors and directors, as great as they are, they're not bankers.
Right.
And we think during this period it's going to be even more important to get money out to our clients. And we think having a banker work for us might be that avenue. And so I was like, well, yeah, I could definitely see that. I love the organization, but it's CARES Act. It only lasts for a year.
Right.
And I go, well, do you have any blueprint for this?
Sure.
No.
No. Do you got one now that you know about it for 5 seconds?
Yeah. Well, what do you think this looks like? Well, we don't really know. We just think having you on. So is anybody else doing this? No. Okay. You're really selling me here. So no one nationwide has hired a banker specifically to just work on capital through your whole, nope.
50 plus years, right?
50 plus years.
You're talking about, that it's existed nationally.
And part of it is because of the funding too. So, this CARES Act basically gave them an opportunity to roll the dice. And I didn't have a job at the time, obviously. And then, all the banks were on lockdown, and they were trying to figure out PPP and EIDL, and all the HR departments were non-existent at that time. Everybody was hold up. No one knew what Zoom was at the time. So that process was going really slow. Here I am, an SBA expert, and for PPP, you had to have an SBA portal and these banks didn't understand how to use it. They never had it. They never used it. They didn't even know what it was. And so here you have somebody who really knows how to do it, and I couldn't help anybody. So it was kind of weird timing, and then they gave me the opportunity, and I said, if we do something here and it works, this could be something special. And if it doesn't work, I've got a year. I'll just go back to being a banker, Right. And so I took the offer, and I kind of sat back and, you've heard that we get graded on capital infusion. That's one of the things that they like to see. And I thought about, all the things that frustrated me as a banker. Why didn't this deal get done? What was the cause of this? What frustrated me as a banker? What frustrates clients? If I'm going to get graded on capital, I need to make it as easy as possible for everybody involved. And how can we take away those roadblocks for people and do it? So I spent a good month or two kind of thinking about how it's going to look, processes, forms, procedures, flows. And we rolled it out, and I probably spent a good 2 months just talking about it out there in webinars and pitching it to people. And I think that the thing that people couldn't believe is we were doing it for free.
You're talking, when you say pitching to people, pitching to banks.
Yeah, pitching to banks.
Because they're going to be your sources or the gateway to get that green light for those folks to start their restaurant.
Yeah,
get
referral.
Their food truck going. Right.
Yeah. Economic development officers and, loan programs that we would partner with, just community leaders, chambers of commerce, those kind of people that could refer people back to us. And it was funny because we spent all this time, and they're like, so how does this work? There was a lot of they didn't quite get it to begin with. And so we kind of went through, I don't know if this is a good time to talk about what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
First, before you do that, I just want to say, I'm so glad that your path led you to this role. Yeah. Just hearing about it, I just picture you as being a person who can advocate for people when they're on their last leg. Yeah. The fact of the matter that you're preparing them, you begin with the end in mind. What's the result here? Yeah. We need to get you funded so that you can do this full time, to start making money, doing what you love and all that stuff. And it's just amazing. Just the fact that SBDC was like, hey, let's try something new. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah. The then state director and then the assistant state director, they had that idea. And if they wouldn't have had that. And it was just funny how everything kind of came together. And quite frankly, if I would have had a job working at a bank at the time, I probably wouldn't have done it because there was no blueprint. We didn't know if it was actually going to work. And CARES Act was only a year long. And so, and to be quite honest, I've taken a step back on pay, which is fine. I was kind of in that position where I was kind of looking to do something better. So, it was just this combination of things. And, I kind of often say COVID, although it was great for my professional career, I think everybody can say it was a disaster for everything else. But it did lead me to the SBDC and to start this. But when I was thinking about this, it was just as a lender, you think about those things that frustrate you as a lender and the client, and you're like, what can we do to make this easier?
Right.
And one of the very first things we did is I thought about, okay, so how often does somebody come in and we know it's an actual loan request? Like, does this in the business we call it having legs? Can we walk with this deal? Is it going to go anywhere? Does it
the business having legs? Like, will it? Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Is this even a legitimate loan request? So the very first thing I said, let's take that out of their hands, the banker's hands, and underwrite this client ourselves. And I may have borrowed some underwriting tools,
Sure.
But we literally go through their loan request to see what the strengths and weaknesses are of the business. And when we get a strength, we enhance it. When we see weaknesses, we try to mitigate those. And a lot of times it's simple things that, they wouldn't think of. And why would they know? If you haven't been a banker.
Going back to the point, right?
Yeah.
There's no blueprint for this.
There really isn't. If you've never been a banker, how do you know about what they're looking for? And that is one of the biggest things here is that nobody knows about banks, what they do, how their decision making is made. I mean, it's a big secret. And we thought, okay, let's underwrite this client so we know if it's a legitimate deal or not.
Sure.
And
basically, would I fund this if I was the bank?
Yeah. And we actually asked that question, would I put my own money into this business? If I can answer that question with a yes, then I think we know we've got a deal here. And so one, is this a fundable request? If not, what do we need to do to get it there? And that's the big thing with bankers, unfortunately. They don't have time to do those kind of things. They have a lot of sales pressure, quotas. There's no way they can spend the time on that. And they would probably like to, but if they want to keep their job, they have to produce. And so they couldn't do those things. So they don't have time to go through and evaluate every client. And so that's what we're doing there. So we take them and we like to call it loan committee ready. As when we get a client, the banker has a conversation with them. They put everything into underwriting scenario. The other thing we do, a lot of times business owners say, we need money, but they don't know what it looks like.
Yeah. All I know is I need to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And it hurts right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that so that would be a loan structure. And so we work with them on what the best avenue is for them. So if you have we like to use like service business, especially that may be seasonal, like lawn care or something like that, where, they're putting a lot of money out in the spring and summer for new equipment, for payroll. Well, they don't really need as much money through the winter. So why would they have a term loan and they're paying interest on money that they don't need?
That makes sense.
So maybe like a line of credit's a better structure for them.
Sure.
Where they can borrow, pay it back, borrow, pay it back. So we work with them on that part too, just to figure out what the best loan solution would be for them. The other part of that is as a banker, they would come in and they wouldn't have all their financials ready to go. There's a laundry list of things that the banks want to see. And when a banker gets somebody and they have everything ready to go, guess what? They get put to the top of the list and they get more attention because they know they have an opportunity to get something into underwriting. So I would have clients all the time. They would, give me a tax return. Then I was waiting on their personal financial statement. Then I was waiting on their business plan. And as a banker, that drove me up the wall.
Well, on the developing business owner end too, they're probably working full time. They've got kids. And
Absolutely.
Then this guy told them, go get your W-2s, your last 2 checks. And they're like going into their company portal and they forget their ADP password. I'm talking as if I totally don't have experience with this kind of stuff, but that's how the can just gets kicked down the road. Yeah. Right. And life just kind of hits people. So yeah, you were talking about the frustration, like when folks needed to get those things and
when a banker has 30 clients they're talking to, keeping track of every one of them to figure out where they are when they're submitting financials, if they're ready to go, is very difficult for them.
Wow.
So we make sure that before they talk to a bank that they have a full financial package ready to go. And it's been purely vetted out as well. And I think that the bankers really appreciate this because when, as you can imagine, and one of the nice things that we do is we have what we call pre-flight conversations with bankers. And a lot of times people don't realize this, but when you engage a banker and you submit an application, they have to go through with a loan request whether or not they like the deal or not. And so we'll have those conversations before we even introduce a financing partner because there's a lot of things at play here where, a bank, let's just say it's a restaurant.
Let's use an example. We'll walk through that.
So you'll have a restaurant. Unfortunately, they have the highest failure rates. And it's not to say that you can't get a restaurant done, but it is definitely one of the harder loans to do. And they come to you and they want a deal and, we're going to talk to X amount of banks and we can have conversations with the bank and they'll say, well, we've had 3 restaurants go bad in the last couple of years. We're not doing restaurant loans. They can be open and frank with us because we're not the ones submitting in the application. If the client does that, they have to go through the underwriting process, whether they know they're not going to be able to do this deal. So when we introduce finance partners, we already know that there's a mutual interest there. They can say, you know what, we're going to pass on this one. We've done too many restaurant deals. We have too many in our portfolio right now. We're going to pass on this one. Okay, no problem. Let's move to a bank that wants to do that.
Right.
Nobody gets it more than I do. I know how those things go. And so when we introduce finance partners to our clients, there's a mutual interest already. We're dating now.
Right.
We like to call it matchmaking.
Absolutely.
Unlike a typical loan broker where they're just throwing out everything against the wall to see what sticks, we're actually taking a targeted approach. So because we've underwritten the client, we know exactly what kind of loan structure there is that they should be looking at. So we target the banks who understand and like what they're doing instead of just throwing it out there. And I think that's where we've really made a really big impact. And a lot of the capital, there is some SBDCs that do capital, but they're not doing it to our extent. And they're not doing strictly capital. I don't do anything but capital. And so that's all I care about is getting clients money that if it makes sense for them. And we make sure that it makes sense for them because we turn away people too. All the time we want to do capital, but we have their best interest at heart. We don't have a loan production goal that we have to worry about. We really, last thing we want to do is put someone in debt that it's just a bad idea for them.
Right.
Maybe they're an existing business and they just need to work on operational efficiencies, or they need to do something. They don't need to take more money out. They really need to work in their business, on their business, and so we provide that as well. So the banks, when I will tell you, when we call a banker, they pick up because they know they're getting a vetted deal.
Absolutely.
They listen. We pitch them the deal. And then what we do is once we have at least 3 resources for our clients that have already been, we give them to our clients, let them have those conversations with the banks.
3 resources being 3 different banks.
Yes, at least.
Got it. Right.
Sometimes we'll have more than that. We might feel that we need to bring in more people to a credit request just in case. And then at that point, this is probably one of the things that we really do really, really well. First of all, our financial resources that we work with we have local bankers, we have regional bankers, and we have national bankers. We prefer to work with our local banks first. I think if PPP has taught us anything, unfortunately, the businesses.
What does PPP stand for?
It was that paycheck program that the government gave money for to keep businesses operating during COVID.
So they could continue paying their employees.
Yes, paycheck. I forgot what you get so used to just saying PPP.
It's all good. Yeah, so just so people know, because it's come up a few times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you learned was supporting the local banks.
Yeah.
Through that. And
a lot of times I kind of took a little flack for this because a lot of people were saying they weren't getting their PPP loans, and the banks, first of all, were getting paid to do this. A lot of people don't know that. So I
did not know that.
Yeah. So they got a piece of the pie every time they did a PPP loan. So they wanted to do them. They were all hands on deck. You had tellers doing submitting. You had back office staff. Everybody was doing it because they were getting paid. And so a lot of people were saying, well, I never got my PPP loan. Well, there's a couple of reasons why you didn't get it. One, you probably didn't have a good relationship with your bank, or you weren't with the right bank. So if you're a small business and you have 5 employees and you're with a national bank and your revenues are $200,000, you probably weren't getting priority status at that national bank. And look, I'm nothing against the national banks at all. They have their wheelhouse. They have their due. The other thing is a lot of them didn't have their financials prepared or ready to go. And unfortunately, at that time, we all know that everybody got flooded at the same time. So
drinking water from a fire hydrant.
Yeah, it totally was.
Especially people in the finance and working with those PPPs. Yeah,
yeah, your accountants were working. I will tell you, those bankers worked their tails off during PPP. I mean, they were putting in 80 hours a week. Now, was it perfect? The SBA, they got that money out there? No, but their main intent was to get money out there. And they did a pretty darn good job for not having a blueprint out there. And but just to go back, we love working with our local lenders. But there's just projects that they don't like. We had a play place that'll be opening up here in Olathe, Kansas, in hopefully in March, and we pitched it to every local bank.
You said play place?
Yeah, it's one of those. I think we have. It'll be in Olathe. So think the McDonald's play place.
Yeah,
like
just
on
like with
steroids.
The jungle gym and like wide open spaces.
And,
turf.
We knew it was. Yeah, we knew it was a bankable deal. We knew it was, and but unfortunately, this industry had a horrible reputation around Kansas City, and every bank in town said no. And so we were like, okay, we got to take this nationally. Within a week, we had 4 offers for them.
Wow.
So we knew it was a bankable deal. We know what's bankable, what's not. And so that was the case where we brought in, and sometimes we'll bring in national lenders to create competition, or if we feel like this is a national. I was just having a conversation yesterday. I go, this is a national deal. The local banks aren't going to touch this. We're just going to take it national. We're not even going to waste our clients' time with us. We're going to take it national. We know what they like, what they don't like. We're talking to them all the time. And so we help them through that underwriting process too. And that's where I think, you get someone who makes pizzas. Yeah, really good at it, right? But talking income statements and balance sheets, probably not their strong point.
I mean, check out. I like making pizza. That's why I do it. If I like talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
You know. I might be doing something else. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you guys fill that gap, that knowledge gap.
Yeah. So the bankers are coming back with those questions. You're like, I don't know what they're talking about. They're talking about debt service coverages and collateral coverages, and I don't know what this is. And we're going through that form. And we do mock interviews before they even get to the bankers. So
that's a very clear delineation here. I think that just came up in our conversation. So you guys are on the front end working with local business owners and people who want to start their own thing, and you are preparing them again, because once you make the introduction to the financial institutions, national, local, whomever, then they're taking the knowledge that you've given them as tools, and then they're going to be engaging, and then you're there for them too if they come back. So it's an important distinction to make, is that you're preparing these people to have these conversations.
Yeah,
you're not showing up to the meetings with them, because God knows you guys don't have the bandwidth to do that. So it's but it's just preparing people.
Yeah.
So there's still that element of like, hey, this is, you put the armor on, you got to go out. This is part of building your dream.
Yeah, it's intimidating too.
We're going to equip you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was a business owner, I was in the music business before I got into banking.
Are you serious?
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that. No, we're going to have to talk about that.
For 13 years.
Because I was a musician. Yeah.
Yeah. I owned a booking agency back in the day. So
wow. Okay.
I didn't know anything about banking. And fortunately, I had a really great banker who, I didn't know what a sole proprietorship or an LLC was.
S Corp. Yeah.
Yeah. S Corp, whatever. What? I am the business. Come on. So I always think about that. I'm like, why would they know these things? And, fortunately, I had a good banker, and he took so good a time with me. I felt like I asked the dumbest questions ever. And, but he was always so supportive. And so that's what we try to do, our business side. There's no way I could do what they do. So bring in the experts to help you kind of get there. And once we get them ready, they get their funding. It's when they don't, we go back and retool if we miss something, because sometimes it's just timing. Right. Right now is an interesting time. One of the things that I had to teach when we first got there was a lot of times it's just finding the right bank and the right banker. Like, if you're going down 135th Street, how many banks are there? For those of you who may not know, that's Overland Park, Kansas on 135th Street.
Right. They're on every corner.
Yeah, every corner. And you're like, what's the difference between this bank? What, They
don't advertise above the building like, we're looking for, restaurateurs.
Yeah.
Or,
we do not do SBA loans. We don't do, so for a consumer, that's really hard to know that. As a business owner, you're like, a lot of times people bank with who their parents banked with, who's right next door, so-and-so banked with them and they like them, and, but it may not be the best fit for your business. And as a regular consumer, how are you going to know that? And so that's another thing. And then on top of that, you may have the right bank, but you may not have the right lender.
Wow.
Because they may be an SBA preferred lender, but the person you're talking to has never done an SBA loan before. But there's an SBA specialist, but guess what? They're on sales goals. They don't want to let you go because it's an opportunity for them to do a loan. And so even within the same bank, you could have the wrong lender. So that's a little bit of a challenge. And then the other great thing is, the bankers love us. I was just saying this. I wish I had a me when I was a lender, because why wouldn't I like this? I'm getting a vetted client.
That's a great point. So two things I want to make sure we discuss too. You talked about, you've alluded to these times that we're in right now. Like it's a tough time. So I want to talk to that. And then I also feel like there's this other component here with your experience and what you do with the SBDC. This is where we tell people, listeners of KCBC, it's like, this is where we go into, this is not just a Kansas City thing, but if you're out there right now and you're thinking, my goodness, this is an opportunity. Maybe there's another SBA loaner on one of the coasts right now. They're listening to you. Somehow they found this podcast, but I feel like we got to talk to current times, what you're seeing, and we can go on and, you can have an opportunity to speak to, maybe some of the banking folks or other SBDCs.
Yeah.
What you think is important.
Yeah, it's really interesting right now because of the rate environment. Everybody's been, even commercial loans a few years ago were 3-4%. It was a really good time to borrow money. A typical SBA loan right now is going at 11.25%. That is a significant jump.
That's percent. Yeah. 11.25% on that loan. That's what you owe back. That's the interest, basically.
Yeah. And if you had a variable loan, guess what? You are at that category and you may not be cash flowing now. You were cash flowing at 5%, but you're not cash flowing at 11.25%. And so this is really difficult times. The Fed, I know why they're raising, and I get it, curbing inflation. But
Federal Reserve Bank, right? They set the interest rates.
Yes, and because they're trying to reduce borrowing and everything. But what they're not considering is the small business owner that needs to access capital cheaply. And, one of the main avenues is SBA lending. It's really hard on small businesses right now. When you're doing 11.25%, I mean, that's pretty high, right? That's the highest I've ever seen it. Right. And so it's really difficult for businesses right now to cash flow. We've had so many deals go to the wayside because they just can't afford those loan payments anymore. And so that's a challenge. And then the banks are seeing clients who are struggling right now because of that rate environment. And so they're cutting back on their credit appetite. And so that's making, we have to be a little bit more creative and maybe structure and maybe reducing project costs for clients. And, do you really need this? Can we do without that? Can we get a used piece of equipment instead of a brand new?
Right. When you're talking about that, you're talking with a business owner and you're saying you might not need 3,000 square feet of storefront on 135th, which is an expensive place to rent.
Yeah.
Could you, do some of it in, inventory some in your garage? I mean, how often are you having those conversations?
All
so you're
the
telling
time.
somebody like, did you know you could probably do this virtually?
All the time.
Maybe there's a drop ship component. I mean, that's the other thing that I heard somebody say in my referral group the other day, like, this is one of the greatest times to start something new because, we're in a time of contraction, and that's when a lot of people are afraid.
Yeah.
And, I talked to one of my previous guests. They expanded during COVID because there was a shop next to theirs. They were able, we can get into this. But you're talking to people, and this is a time of being a lot more creative with how you start your business because of these rates. So what are some of the things that people are doing? And
we're definitely seeing that. That's what I just had a conversation with a client. They came in with a $4.2 million request. They want to buy the building. And I'm like, there's no bank that's going to touch this at this project costs. You're a startup. There's no historicals. You have good industry. You have good equity injection, but not at this. And so we worked with this client. All of a sudden, we get the project cost down to $1 million. She's got money to put into the deal, a really strong equity requirement. She's got money left over. She's leasing now, not trying to buy a building.
Right.
and we're able to lease equipment as opposed to buying the equipment. So all of a sudden, now the whole thing looks a lot different, even at the rates that we're looking at. And that was some of the things that we're looking at. We've seen a lot of owner finance deals, which is interesting. They're bypassing the banks altogether, which is interesting. There's some good things about it. There's some things that you need to do. I think one of the great things that we do here is that we're not tied to traditional bank financing. So if our client gets financing any other way, we're looking at all avenues. We've taken, I've looked at financial statements and discovered assets that we could utilize to get lending for them outside the bank that made more sense for them, because we don't care how they get the capital as long as it's good for them, and
which is good for the state, because
which is
you're
good for the state.
Capital money is going to local entrepreneurs, business owners, and it's getting spent back into the state. Yeah.
We had a lady that she wanted to open up she had been working with the bank for 18 months on an SBA loan. And she got so frustrated. And someone referred her to me. I can't remember how she came to me. I got a hold of her business plan, and within 5 minutes knew it was ineligible. She wanted to open up an all-women's gym. And that's unacceptable under SBA standards.
Okay.
And unfortunately, she was already in motion. And so finding a bank to finish out a project is going to be impossible. And they don't like that. They don't know where you're at. And we were able to utilize some assets that they had. We lowered a personal mortgage for them, did a cash out.
Sure.
She got a great rate on it and got her business that she's doing fantastic, and was still able to keep her concept.
Right.
Which was really important to her. That was her whole business model. And I think that's a really good example of there's no way she should have spent 18 months dealing with this bank or other banks too, because it was a SBA loan. And a typical SBA loan should be anywhere from 30 to 90 days, not a year. It was just a perfect example of
to be told she's not eligible.
Yeah, and I had it in 5 minutes.
Somebody could have told her that on the front end, maybe.
They didn't know.
Who knows? Yeah, exactly. Okay.
They didn't know.
That's right.
Yeah, they didn't know. The bank that they were dealing with, I knew. I was like, uh-oh.
Oh, right.
I went through it, and I was like, you're going to have to do something different. We're going to have to figure out something. So
on that subject, you've mentioned a few examples in this time and in 2024. What do you think are really smart industries to break in, or what types of businesses are you kind of, I guess, right now seeing success with now? And what do you think is going to be important in 2024?
Good question there. Well, we're seeing senior, anything to do with senior healthcare, the population's aging. It's not going anywhere either. It continues to grow. Life expectancy is, but on that side, there's a lot of competition out there too.
Right.
I would suggest if you're going to go that route, franchises, I think, provide a lot of really good data there. It gives you name recognition. I think that's going to be an area that continues. I think we're going to see a little bit of a resurgence in retail.
Okay.
Which
like local retail?
Local.
Shops.
I think, I think people, online's great, right?
Yep.
But I don't know about you, but when I order some clothing line on, online, it never seems to fit right,
Well, they put their sizing charts up there, and so I've gotten to where, like, I'll tell my wife, hey, babe, get the measuring tape. I want to see, I want to make sure this fits right. But it's so much better to just walk into a local place, try something on. You know?
I think the local
retail,
I think there's a little bit of my daughter, she's 20, and she does shop online, but she loves local. all her friends love going into the store, trying things on. So I think you might see a little bit of a resurgent there with that age group. Of course, tech, anything to do with technology advances. Unfortunately, they're not the most bankable, though. That's because they don't have collateral. So that's banks like tangible assets that they can get their hands on.
That's their backup plan, right? If
that is their backup plan.
We're going to take that.
Yeah.
What about this whole thing that's been coming out? So I'm not going to name the influencers because they don't pay me to drop their names as much as I would. But there are folks that have been talking about, buy a property management company, buy a car wash, buy a laundromat, start a laundromat. Like these things that were considered like, dirty businesses, or not like dirty, but just because they were like very hands-on and, they have high equipment costs and things like that. Can you think of anything like for the divergent thinkers out there, like a direction maybe that might work out? Because some ideas are so crazy, it's like you just can't. We got to find another way.
I don't know, but there's a car wash on every corner now, right?
They're all subscription based too.
They're all subscription based. They do make good money. I will say that. There's a reason why they're popping up everywhere, but I think it may be a little saturated.
Right.
I mean, they're getting as worse as banks, right?
Right.
Like everywhere. Those, I can't really think of anything in particular. But I don't know. Laundromats. I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's a hard question for me. I don't.
Yeah. That's okay.
And going back to I think you had a question about the SBDC and being able to replicate that nationwide.
Yeah, I was just going to switch gears there.
Yeah. It's interesting to do what we do. So about 2 years ago, I actually added someone in Western Kansas. He's a former bank president, for goodness sakes, retired. He got bored, wants to help people. And so it's really hard to do because you got because a lot of states want to do this. I've had a lot of people want to do it. We've been recognized nationally for what we're doing, and they want to recreate this particular thing, but it's difficult because you have to find a banker who's willing to kind of ready to step back a little. From a financial standpoint as well, and have the right amount of experience. There's a lot of bankers out there who we like a lot, and maybe they would take it, but they don't quite have the experience level.
Yeah, because their learning curve is going to be a lot.
It's a long time.
Longer.
Yeah, you just and a lot of the bankers today, the lenders, they're not actually bankers; they're salespeople, and so they're just shuffling paper. That's another thing you have to kind of look for. So, a lot of times they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll do this loan." Yeah, but they're checking tick marks on their activity sheets, and they don't know if the loan's going to get done or not.
Right.
And so the small business owners or any place that's wanting to replicate it really has to find those individuals who are ready to step back a little bit, want to give back from a financial standpoint as well, and have that experience. And so I think that's because the model can be replicated. It's just finding the people to do it. And I think that's the biggest challenge.
Do you guys think you're at a point where now or in the near future, especially since you're at the Johnson County Community College, that you might start some sort of way to train or harness all your learnings, right? Because I know you've had to prototype a lot of stuff. But you've funded how many million in SBA?
We've done in 3 years. We're really proud of this, by the way. So since we started 3 years ago, we've funded over $80 million for small businesses here in Kansas. And that is just our department. So that we've been involved with. So the small business centers, they don't always pull us in on every deal.
Sure.
Which sometimes we don't have enough bandwidth, or maybe it's a little bit easier where our advisors and directors can handle it.
But 80 million is what you know.
Yeah, 80 million
is probably more.
Yeah, it actually, I know it's more. I can't remember the stats for our Kansas SBDC in particular, but the SBDC network nationwide really pumps out it's impressive what they do.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then so it's just incredible to see that part. And I'd really like to give a shout out to Johnson County Community College because
we will link them in the show notes.
Yeah, because they're, we're non-revenue producing. So when you think about their commitment and to working statewide as well, so they still allow me to work with clients in Dodge City, Kansas, and Liberal, Kansas, and those kind of places. And they don't have to do that, but they see the greater good of what's happening in Kansas, and so they taken on my contract to keep us going. And because there was a time where we didn't know if we were going to get funding or not. And I will tell you, our local representatives, they've been absolutely fantastic and supportive of what we're doing. Dr. Marshall and Sharice Davids have been terrific. They love what we're doing, and they see, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, you can see the...
I was just thinking that. Because, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
You know, these folks are supporting this.
Yeah. So shout out to them. So
I know, too, that with Johnson County Community College, and I haven't started any classes there yet, but, that's the go-to. I worked for some of the biggest companies in this area, and whenever there was a training need with somebody on the team or maybe somebody that I managed, it was like, at Johnson County Community College probably has a course for that.
Yeah.
Whether it's Excel or it's some program or, a skill that somebody needs to develop. Just a huge resource. I feel like, too, it's funny. I'm just going to say it. It's kind of coming full circle. But when my wife and I, thought about relocating to Kansas, we knew it was around 2015, right? So the Royals, that was the year the Royals won the World Series.
That's a great year.
And just seeing that the industry that's happening here, obviously the sports teams are doing well. There's been some major players that have come to Kansas to set up, major manufacturing operations. And, that makes it great for us. And I've been thinking about it along this time, and then it came full circle this year. But how's the small business community doing? And knowing that you guys are on the tip of the spear with that, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of fun. I love what I do. It's like I've always enjoyed being a banker. It's been a great career, but this has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. It's been so great, and it's kind of fun too because I get to check the bankers. So.
Check them like a hockey check.
Oh yeah, they'll try to, and don't get me wrong, they're all by and large they all are good, but sometimes they have to do what's best for the bank,
right?
And that's not always something that's always best for our client,
right?
And so what their policies aren't always what's in the best interest of our clients, and so we're on the back end looking out for them. We just had a client that just did a business acquisition, and they had 5 offers, and we had to go through each offer to see what the good, the bad, and the ugly was for our client. And it was a hard decision for them
because they can't pick multiples. You got to go with one lender.
Have to go with one lender in most cases. We did have a project early that we actually worked with a local bank. And then we had a national bank take them out permanently. So we actually we had, it's probably one of my favorite, the Haven out in Lewisburg, Kansas, event center. It's beautiful. You'll love it because it's designed for music as well, and events. He's audio guy. And we actually brought in a local bank to do the construction. And we had National Bank take out the permanent financing, and he was an interesting one because he had bought the land and doing an event center, and then COVID hit. Bank backed out. He was stuck with all this land trying to find – we knew it was a bankable deal, but we had to find lenders who could see past COVID.
That's right. And
we got a hold of him and had several offers within a week. He's just absolutely killing it out there. It's a gorgeous event center. He's been a huge supporter of us, and But yeah, that's an example of where we've worked with local and national banks to get the deal done. We don't care as long as it makes sense for our client.
What would you say to somebody who is thinking of starting their own business right now? What would you say is important as they're thinking about building it?
Yeah, I think, follow your dreams, right? You never know. Some people, we get so many people that come in all the time. They don't know if it's going to fly or not. And we help guide them through that, but you don't know until you start that process, right?
Right.
And I think there is some opportunity out there today. I loved your counterpoint about, things are tough right now, but that's also opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to think that way. It really is, because when people are stressed at the level that they are right now, and obviously with me and my own journey, it's hard to think straight when you've got cortisol and adrenaline and, all the things that happen in life to elevate yourself above your circumstances.
Yeah.
And to really see, Phil's on the other side there. When I asked him the other day something that he did, he said, ask 5 people in your life what they have to say about you when you're feeling imposter syndrome, I know it's kind of an aside, but to get people, I feel like that's something that I'm seeing your office helps people with as well.
We really do. Yeah, to see if it's a reality or not. Like, is this, I think that, and for some people, especially after they take that business basics in a day, they're like, yeah, that's not for me.
Right.
But it's
people
better.
Walking in there with their battle scars.
But it's better than spending $25,000 to find out otherwise, right?
Yeah.
I think, I encourage everyone to seek it out and see if it's legitimate. And, the one thing that I can say we were very honest about, here's the obstacles that you're going to run into. Hey, we'll be there to help.
Right.
But this is what the reality is. And, if you're willing to put in the work and the time and effort, let's see if we can do something here. That's
right.
Heck, yeah. I mean, I did my business for 13 years, and decided to hang it up and, go into banking for some odd reason. I don't know how you go from music to banking. I don't know. But, that was some of the best time, but I knew I was coming to an end, and I needed to do something different in my career. But I think there's, you should seek it out,
right.
See if it's something you're passionate about and there's something that'll work for you.
Absolutely. So we really did cover, everything. We talked about the SBDC, how you got your start, what you guys do. You gave us real life examples. Yeah. Is there anything that we did not cover or something that you wanted to tell folks?
I can't really, I think, we talked about, what we do, how we got started. I love what we do for our clients. It's just, gosh, I wish they would have had that when I was a banker. I was thinking, I was like, man, they got it easy now.
Right.
They really do. I was at a function the other night and they're like, man, we've just never seen people come to us so prepared. Like, it's amazing what you guys get to do. And so that's pretty nice to hear that from the bankers, because they, they're going to shoot it to you straight. And so that's good. I can't really think of anything, that we haven't talked about as far as, the Capital Center or any of the SBDC stuff or anything like that. I think it's, I think in life, people, just never know how things are going to work out, and life takes you in different directions. And sometimes that passion leads you to business and entrepreneurship. And, you really should look for those, look for those cues.
Absolutely. Well, I so appreciate you coming on the show today, Vince. It has been a complete honor. And anytime you want to come back, anytime,
thank you.
We'll have you. I think I've been pretty upfront with everybody and my listeners about why I'm doing this. Yeah. And I hope that with every episode that we do, there's just more and more of that opportunity for people to realize something new or something in a new way. So I appreciate you, sir.
You're doing an incredible job of getting word out.
Thank you, sir.
It's I'm so glad that you contacted us, and we get to. You're obviously a great guy. In addition to just doing some great work out there for the community, the Small Business Network, and these are the kind of things that let people know about the resources out there, and the challenges that are out there too. And there's people out there that want to help. You just got to find them. Unfortunately, they're not going to fall into your lap very often.
That's right.
We do hear it so often. We're like, man, we wish we would have met you guys 2 years ago, or with the SBDC and the Capital Center. It's like we hear that so many times. Like, I wish we would have known you guys earlier.
Yeah, well, hopefully it just continues to spread, and we'll keep a close pulse on that as well.
Yeah, It's been hard to keep up with. I will tell you, we continue to grow. We may even have to look at adding on some people if we can. It is tough to find that bankers. So if there's anybody out there that
you know who your contact is now, team.
Contact me. We're always looking for talent too. Because our client list continues. We had our best year ever this year. So despite rates,
so good.
Rate environment, but more and more people are finding out about us, and so the referrals coming in have just been nonstop. And I was shocked this week. Usually it's pretty quiet. That's why we set it up at this time.
Right.
And I've got 3 appointments this afternoon, with potential new clients, and they were all referrals from centers of influence. So,
awesome.
It's definitely out there. So.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, I appreciate you listening today. Thanks again, Vince, for coming down.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for listening to Kansas City Business Cast. Remember, share, spread the word, give us a rating, give us a review. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you.